Good.
Well, that's good.
Leading Emmy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to Emmy TV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
What up, what up? Hey, listen, I come through the building today, boy. I don't know if y'all ready for the day, but I got my sister in the building. I got Heather online. I got Dave online. Like, we about to get into a real heavy subject. A lot of you don't know that the median wealth for black women in poverty, and a lot of black women is, at one point, was just $5.
What?
Yeah, that was a statistic. Remember, we were talking about statistics. The median wealth, right, of black women was $5 at one point, right? I believe this was 2015, 14. It was one of those things, right? And today, we're going to have this conversation with Crystal Gunn.
Hey.
Amazing Woman's CEO Network in the building, always.
Thank you.
Just know it's going to always be that way. Y'all might as well get used to it. If I go to the mountaintop, she going with me.
Absolutely. And vice versa.
And vice versa. So y'all need to know that, and show that. Also on is Dave Patterson, soon to be Dr. Dave.
Yes. Sound like a plan.
Yes,
God is
yes.
good.
And
Hey.
also is the Queen. The Queen is on as well. The Queen, Hetheru, the mother of many, the goddess of the nation, the overseer of all things breathing. I'm talking birds, animals, spiders. This sister
And
goes,
as I call her, my Heather.
you're Heather. So, yeah, no question.
My Heather.
Thank you, Crystal. Still Gunn.
So let's get right to this, because I think this really was when we were talking, Crystal, you jumping on this, it also makes for a reason for a lot of things that a lot of other people go through, because I'm in poverty. Poverty has a way of making us do things that will harm everything, right? I don't know if you guys ever seen the movie The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind.
No, I've seen the preview, but I've never watched it.
Oh yeah, you want to take that one in. It was in that process, right? It's on Netflix. The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. Poverty became an issue, and it's huge. You just got to check it out. So we know that poverty makes us do certain things, right? But this medium wealth, also poverty doesn't. Sometimes poverty is not the reason that you're in poverty. Sometimes it's poor decision making that led to you being in poverty, right? It doesn't always mean that you weren't smart, or you didn't read, or couldn't accumulate, or if you're lazy, sometimes you made some decisions that put us in poverty. So, Crystal, tell us what brings you to METV with this delicious topic.
Because you started out talking about those poverty statistics, and for me, doing what I do as a financial strategist, I am all things Black economics specifically, and you've probably heard me talk a ton about that 2053 prediction of blacks having zero wealth. And for me, it can't happen on my watch. So I want to dig into the single black women, single black mothers specifically, and I have a program coming out for them, but single black mothers being at the bottom of the wealth ladder. That's a problem, because that also means those children are at the bottom of the wealth ladder too.
Yes. And God knows if the children are there, what happens. Right, that you just gonna bring me in. That's for real. But I'm gonna let you do your thing because
Absolutely.
right, because that brings that conversation as to kids need both, right?
Absolutely. So let's just start out with some statistics here. Over 3.3 million mothers live below the federal poverty level. The poverty rate for single mothers, just as in general across all nationalities, is 31%. For black mothers, it's 35%. For non-Hispanic white mothers, it's 26%. For Asians, 22%. And for Native Americans, 43%. So 64% of children living in the single-parent households are black. 4 million with single black mothers, 1 million with single black fathers.
Wow.
Right. And so when you look at those effects, higher levels of stress, 53 to 59%, higher levels of anxiety, 43%, depression, up 35%, loneliness, up 55%, which means they are constantly living in a state of survival. It's killing us.
Poverty is killing us.
Poverty is killing us.
Poverty decisions. It's what is that decision making thing that we were talking about suicide, right? It's morbidity, right? Making decisions that impact you physically and morbidity through decision making, right? And as you talk about poverty, that's one of the things that is happening. As you talked about the numbers, when you talked about depression, you talked about anxiety, loneliness is real, right? We are missing the boat on both, right? So you can continue your story, but you just make the connection as to why we need each other, right? It's amazing because when a child is with their father from birth to 9, they live longer. Take that statistic away, take that off the table because we're not even coming together. But go ahead, as you were saying.
When we talk about the single black women being at the bottom of the wealth rung, right above them, single black fathers with children in multiple households.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're paying into a system.
You're paying into a system.
And when you think about that, and a lot of people don't know this, but the black father is the most consistent with child support.
Say it again.
Black father is the most consistent with child support. The black father pays his child support. If he have to give up a leg, he paying his child support.
Despite what they want you to believe.
Despite that. Despite what they really try to convince you to believe, as though some of us have bought into these conditions. But please proceed.
So
Man, that's heavy.
Yeah.
That's heavy. But I feel like they spin it, though. Like,
what do you mean?
so, I mean, one, they really don't tell that we pay child support. But instead of bringing up if we pay child support or not, they just label us as deadbeat daddies. Like, we don't spend time. Like, they pay the money, but they ain't seeing their kids.
And that's a lie, too.
Yeah, that's a big lie.
Yeah.
Right? They already smashed that in 2012.
Yeah.
They discovered that the most involved father was the black father.
Right.
So the problem is we're not on top of the marketing.
I mean, that's
We
real.
are
That's
not
what's
on
real.
top of the
That's really what it is. That's,
Yeah.
that's why the white people was ahead of the game and a lot of stuff. They
Right.
use marketing to push whatever agenda they want to push.
In fatherhood, they're suffering, if not more. It's not necessarily that in that process when you get into fatherhood, that the white male is suffering when it comes to fatherhood.
I'm just talking about the people that's pushing the message.
Oh yeah, well, people that's pushing the messages is everything.
It's white men behind
it.
It
ain't just white men. You talking about the LBGQT, all of that. It's a bunch of that. That's behind. You got to understand, advertising is in the hands of multiple people.
For sure.
It is not. It's not just white people.
Except us.
And right, exactly. Even if you go look at, and then we'll get back to what you're saying, but if you go look at advertising dollars, and the economy, the Hispanic economy has grown, as well as when you look into the biggest minority. Right, so the Hispanics have become the biggest minority. That was during George Bush era, because George Bush was ushering in. Now we play politics. Well, we got too many. Well, it was fine when y'all was having them cut the lawns and do all that and help your construction company, but now you got too many. So we gonna smash the border. We gonna cut them off. Why you think they all was coming? Because during George Bush era, they had a free ticket. We got to remember, before 9/11, George Bush said, we got to let these people do the job that the American people won't do. And when that happened, 911 suddenly occurred. But let's go.
So just a little more on the statistics side. Despite high levels of employment, at least half of young mothers with children under the age of 13 worry daily or frequently about not being able to pay their bills. And 73% of those, that happens among 73% of young black mothers, and just over 1/3 of young black mothers, young single black mothers, 38% own their home with a mortgage or a loan, compared to 6 in 10, with 61% of white single mothers owning their home. So it's just across the board, the disparity just screams.
Yeah, because we're passing along, we continue to house the struggle. Right. We continue to use that they word. Right. We continue to use the things that, Chris, we was having this conversation and I shared with you. Right. So when we were talking about self-injury morbidity, right, which is what I was talking about. Right. Remember the statistic I gave you. Now, what you just gave me, in China, the woman has surpassed the male in suicide, and everything you just gave me, they have the same symptoms. Which means, as I was telling a movie producer yesterday that I was talking with, I said, you got to understand. He was white. So you got to understand. They experiment on poverty, and they just continue to move it until you got it. Now that you got this disease, who are you yelling and screaming about? The government. Where is everybody running to? Well, I want to be a senator. I want to be a senator too, because if I'm going to senator, let's say I'm worth 100,000. When I come out of that Senate, I'm worth 10 million.
Right.
Suddenly, I'm worth 10 million. I can go on. I know, got all the. So when we talk about women and mothers, right, this is why our conversations have to be around moving that dynamic from the individual mindset, because that as you so said. I was watching you not too long ago on one of your shows, and you discussed how you and your ex co-parented, and you knew that wasn't the norm.
Oh, it's definitely not the norm.
It is not the norm.
And for the record, shout out to my ex-husband. I have the best ex-husband in the world. So thank you very much.
That's what two mamas would say too.
Yeah, I mean, and it is rare, and it's so rare that people look and they comment on it like, really? And we never went, and my daughter will be 21 this year. We've been divorced since she was probably 4 or 5, and we never got in that. I definitely did not want to be in the child support system, so we've just always co-parented, and financially co-parented as well, very well. So yeah.
When I walk through.
But even with that, and I think part of the reason why I'm so passionate about single black mothers is because although we were divorced and we co-parented very well, I still was in my house. I'm now the only breadwinner. So you still run into that same thing where now, even if we were in a place where he wrote me a check every single month for child support, it's not the same as having that full salary in that household. So now we go from 2 salaries to 1. that's an impact. And so, where we were fortunate that we made very good money, think about those people that didn't and how that impacts
Economics is everything.
everything.
And the more that we get to the place and understanding that the economics is everything, right? Then all the possibilities of the things that you want to do and you need and can do is possible, right? Especially if you got two heads in a hole, right? You know what I mean? Because if we together,
Yeah, we can do a whole lot more.
we can do a whole lot more. And that's the place we got to move to me. But there's some more.
Is there some more?
Oh yeah,
What more?
when you come to, here's one for you, sister.
Because there's definitely more.
Here's one. The underlying causes for women's poverty vary across countries, but generally fall into one of these main categories: demographic, composition, right, economic conditions, and government policy. The prevalence of a single mother families affects women's poverty because women disproportionately bear the cost of child rearing, right?
35% of their cost of their income is spent on child, what do you call it when your kid?
Child care.
Yeah, child care.
Right, and that's if you really are responsible.
Exactly.
Because child care, as you well know, child care on average comes out to like $170 some a week now. And so if you are making $15 an hour and you paying for child care, right? Hey, listen, you got your hands full. Right? So this is why we have to stop the animosity. Getting out of the system should be the one move. That should be the first move, right?
Yep.
Right, but we don't have the common sense because guess what comes with the system now? When you talk about the system, this poverty system, this pimp, the papa, right? There's it's called I forget what the title is, but what it said was in 18 something that the government was deciding that it was going to be Paternist, Paternist Act, right? That they were going to be pretty much the father, right? Because what was happening was white males was having all these interracial babies, and they had to go to the system. That same still child support system is sitting at the base of what is taking place, right?
That explains a lot.
That explains a lot. Then you go further on. The Paternist Act also was supposed to act where the juvenile system was supposed to be a rehabilitation. So you were taking your son, right? When I was working at the juvenile, we saw all of these boys coming into the juvenile. We had mothers dropping them off, bringing them into the juvenile because the boys were putting their hands on the mothers. At a certain age, a boy knows I'm stronger than you.
Right.
Another reason why we need both, right? So now he's in the juvenile system. I love my baby, but do I care? Right? Right? And then when you start getting even further in, and then we'll go back to what you were saying, you're talking food, you're talking medical, you're talking housing, Section 8. You're talking all these things that you can get to aid in your singleness and your loneliness and your depression in your area that doesn't equate to you still having that person in home or involved. So it's better for him to be involved. Figure out a way for us to stay involved instead of figuring out the way talking that crazy stuff, I don't need you, and pushing you away, right? Because poverty is real and it'll make you do things.
That goes back to that state, living in that state of survival. So when we talk about the brain, right? You have the midbrain, and then you have the cortex. And the cortex is where that rational thought, creativity, and all of that takes place, right? But then you have this thing called the amygdala that says that's the alarm mechanism, that fight or flight. Well, when there's a state of fear or survival, right, that it triggers that alarm system. So it triggers the amygdala, which shuts down your access to your cortex. So you can't even figure out a logical or a creative way to get out of that state of poverty, that state of depression. And what is depression and anxiety and stress? All of that is a state of fear. And that fear, so that's another firm reason why I'm like, you got to turn off the TV. You got to start watching news. Some of this stuff you got to start watching on social media because it's putting you in a state of fear and panic. Again, shutting off access to your cortex. So people think, okay, I'm not moving to where I want to go. I can't accomplish these goals, right? Because, and what do they say? If your dreams aren't
Big,
or don't scare you, they're not big enough.
right?
Okay, but listen to that statement, right? If they scare you, the alarm mechanism goes off. You can't create, you can't figure out rational thought in order to get you there. So you literally have to break things down to its smallest. So if I need to sell 1,000 products this month, this year, in order to make what I want to make, well, 1,000 may scare you. You got to break it down to how many do you need to do per day, so that you then wind up tricking your brain to start creating new software, new brain waves, and things of that nature to help you then get through this process. And then as you do that and those new brain waves are created, now stuff starts to happen more rapidly. But if we're living in that state of survival, our access to our cortex is always cut off. How do you get past that?
So, to add to that, right? Poverty is also one of the best ways to be creative, right? It's understanding what is happening. If you're down to one meal, what do you need to do? Where is your creativity at, right? They did a study on the Jews and the Africans and things like that. That's why I said this movie was so important, right? Because when everyone else was panicking, what they say about boys, the frontal cortex, right? When they say that frontal cortex knew but a boy. But when he has his father, it's different. In the movie, he's got his father.
Right.
Right? And so all these things was happening. But when you have the conversation, okay, we only got down to one meal. The most creative person at that time was the boy. While everybody else was doing exactly what you were saying. The boy, who was only concerned about his family, he was the one that was planning and executing and went at his dad on several occasions to get him to listen. He still wouldn't listen, right? And after all had failed, finally they listened. Wrote a whole movie about it. The boy went on to graduate from major university, the whole nine. When you see the movie, you'll understand why it was so important. It is important that we do not let food prevent us from being creative and answering these problems. So what we look at it, because of the visual things that you talk about, poverty is impacted because, okay, yeah, we're not getting those 3 meals we was getting today. We only getting that 1 meal, right? So what do we do in that process? Well, they found that intermittent fasting helps your brain operate even more. As a matter of fact, Dr. Eric Berg had a whole conversation on how he got through his doctorate only having one meal. Because his brain was on a high alert and learning and could take in, and he could focus because he didn't have to be concerned about food. Food wasn't his draw.
Right.
So sometimes we need to understand that even in poverty, what you getting? What did you have when you was, when poverty hit us, Crystal, we had the black eyed pea, remember the black eyed pea Cocoa Puff type cereal that you put the milk and the milk would be soggy and the cereal fall to the bottom of the bowl and the milk. That you had Captain King Vitamin, right? Nothing but sugar. They was trying to knock you off with the po food, right? King Vitamin, like King. Everybody was like, I need a box of King Vitamin.
Was terrible.
Man, your whole mouth would be raw after eating the cereal. I had got to the point where I didn't like poverty, right? So, like today, I don't like a lot of potatoes, right? I don't eat pancakes or waffles, made me sick. So, those are the things.
I often hear people that say that a lot of stuff that they ate because they did not have money growing up, they don't eat as an adult. Thank God. I mean, I was blessed enough to not have that issue, but yeah, I hear that.
I had it both.
Man.
So we had it good.
I
then we had
to
it
get that box cheese back.
Right, that big old
man, they had
Borden's.
Man, the grilled cheese back in the day. Right. They don't know grilled cheese now.
Unless you had that cheese.
Yeah, and that cheese was not passing. So it tore up colons, everything. It was tearing up colons and everything. But just to get beyond it, like hot dogs and pork and beans. Never.
Never. All right, now you guys just crossed the line.
Never again.
You crossed the line with beans and Franks. Y'all have crossed the line.
yeah, the poverty for Black women was severe. It's that's why I didn't. For me, in my research, I didn't like the feminist movement because it added some other things to our women, right? It added more burdens to our women. Then it made our women, in some cases, right, in 1975, when the National Organization of Women announced that all the women were going to raise the children, our women bought into that too. And that created a lot of issues. In fact, I'll be willing to bet, Crystal, along the poverty lines, right? Because we couldn't get the jobs in the 70s, right? We had to, we had to hustle, right? So what did we, just like drug, we turned to pimping. We turned to, right? Those things. But for the Black woman, being raised by one, right? Who, in our household, when my parents divorced, my mom turned into the gambler. So gambling parties. Like we used to host gambling parties. Like people from all up the big three and all these people.
That was to raise money. I mean, that was to bring money into the household.
That was to make money.
Right.
That's how she paid the house note.
Right.
After old dude and her split, because we grew up with charter buses and Cadillacs and businesses and everything. And when they split, that was it. Right. Music, all that. I'm talking about dad on a tour, come back. That money was, you know what I mean? But in that process, that gambling. Today, it's not safe for you to say you having a gambling party. You go to the look what they put in place.
You go to the casino.
You go to the casino. So your casino addiction, how many homes have that tore up? I can raise my hand. How many homes have casino addiction tore up? I remember when the casinos first opened, it was a year later. I'll never forget this. Man sat on the porch with the gun that killed his daughter and his wife and waited on the police. And when the police came, he said they wouldn't pay the house note. He said, I tried to get them to pay the house note, talk to them to pay the house note. I couldn't take it no more. They was gambling up everything. I was losing everything. And he called the police on himself and sat on the porch.
Wow.
That's when I recognized the gambling addiction. Right now, even till today, notice we got apps.
Yeah.
So the consumer, what does it say about the Black woman and the consumption?
We're huge. We consume. We buy everything. Everything.
I wish they was buying Emmy like that.
Or the Amazing Woman Network.
Right.
Yeah. But all of this all goes back to, again, you start looking at that survival mode. So now I'm buying this on one end because society says I need to wear these certain things and I have to look this certain part, so I'm buying this thing. On the other end, a term which I truly hate, retail therapy. That's not therapy. Like that's just spending your money on more things that you don't even need.
Wow. Dave, Heather, you guys want to add to this poverty conversation, or are you?
And Heather in that pretty red, I love it.
Thank you.
She changed them boots quick when that snow came down.
I know she did. Look, me as well.
Well, I think it's so much rich information and insight in how you guys are sharing around the statistics, and more than anything, our mindset shift. What's it worth? So if we are thinking poverty mindset, that means we're living poverty mindset. How do we start to restore our thoughts so that we can restore our relationships and our families and our homes? Once we, I was speaking this weekend about thinking on these things. There's a reason why that scripture says that. Think on these things. Because and Crystal, you mentioned this, that, your thought becomes things. So if you're constantly thinking about how you can change your situation by buying something for the appearance of something else, that's part of the buy-in for the poverty mindset, because you're not addressing the issue. You're trying to put a Band-Aid on it, or you're trying to put the mask on something, as opposed to looking deeper in the solutions. And I think I know we're in a different place in this season, but being able to look at our reality in terms of solutions, I think that's how we start the process of shifting. And some of us just need to have a little bit more of that reality and the solutions put before us. Because some of the things that we're seeing on social media is exactly saying, if you want this kind of lifestyle or this kind of outcome, then do these easy things and you can get there. Like you can go on YouTube for a 3-minute fix to, or social media for a 3-minute fix. 3-minute or less fixes is what we have been programmed to receive. And so if you can't fix it in 3 minutes, that's what you mean 5 minutes? You may have to listen 30 minutes. You mean 2 hours? So the more time that you're invested, the more time your mindset has to shift. That 3-minute fix is just it's a temporary sound bite. And so I that's one of the reasons I find it hard to be brief, but I'm working on managing it better. It's not my strong suit because I think it's value in the time that we invest. Where are we placing our time? What are we placing our thoughts to? I think those things make a difference. And some of the things that we place our mind and our thoughts to are evident in what we do, our lifestyle. So I think those things, continue to have more positive models, more positive directions, and putting those things in places where people can have access to them. I think those things are a lot more enriching to shifting and growing out of a poverty mindset, therefore growing out of poverty itself.
Brother Day?
Oh, y'all really brought the big guns today. I mean, really. I mean, I like that. But I like what Heather said and what Crystal presented in relation to the emotional impact as well as the mindset needing to be shifted. She said something that's interesting because I too like to engage in conversation, right? Some would call it I'm lecturing, but I've learned something. You ever read the Bible in 30 seconds? You ever seen any book that's only one page long? See, the Bible sits down and gives you a narrative. And see, people want that microwave instant return, but that's not how life works. When you ever seen a seed planted that popped up the next 20 minutes? Don't happen. Everything takes time. A conversation. This is why you run into the financial deficit and emotional poverty, because people don't want to have the conversation. I had a pastor confront me about it and say, "You're like my wife, just get to the point." I said, "Well, if God wants us to just get to the point, he said, you sin, you die. Point over." You see, that's not how it works. Everything requires investment, as you said. As you guys have done the research, you could not have got that in 30 seconds. You had to do your due diligence. The average book is not one page. They don't call it a book. See, so we have to be willing to take the time. That's why the Bible tells you, let patience have its perfect work. But there's another side to this. That's that part where Crystal was saying that comes with what I call emotional poverty. See, a great deal of the things that we see that happen to people, specifically women, is because there's an emotional deficit. And we know that in many situations, there are 4 parts to emotional poverty. There's that part where the integration and the regulation of the brain is underdeveloped. We know that the inner self becomes weakened. Bonding and attachment becomes unstable. Well, if you have relationships where you're compromised that way, then obviously the relationship is going to be unstable. So it's important that we recognize that this is not just an outward issue. This is an inward issue. This is a mindset and an emotional mindset. Let's go back to what do you call it? Retail therapy. That's fulfilling emotional deficit. You're going to get all the stuff, and then you go into most people's houses, that's all they got is stuff. Their closets are filled with unnecessary. There's an emotional piece that's been compromised because people don't sit down and think about, why am I reacting this way? I'm not being proactive. I'm being reactive. That's all emotional deficit. So we have an emotional poverty that's going on with people as well. In most cases, if we truly be honest, even when y'all were talking about, which I don't like none of that food y'all were talking about, black eyed peas, pinto beans, puffer, whatever it is, I ain't eating it. I just eat them greens and be straight. But but even on that, when you really sit back, let's go back now. Now, I don't see nobody on the emaciated. None of us look on this line like we emaciated, and we didn't come up short on being full. So in most cases, people are not spending money on their needs. which God has always supplied. They're spending money on their wants and desires. But when I used to study with the Buddhists, they said the wants and desire create some level of pain and suffering. So deprivation comes into play. Because now, if you're a person that's spending your money on retail therapy, what I just saw Jaden Smith, they said he's having retail therapy. Well, there's something else going on deeper besides that. So until you can get into the inner workings of an individual, you're going to always see the outward manifestation of inappropriate behavior. And when you go out there and you spend, your part of your basic needs is 30%, but people spend 70% of their income on their wants and desires. Then they wonder why they're in trouble. I don't have no disregards to our Black women, but at the end of the day, that's a mindset. And this is why Crystal and you, Heather, are so important, because the Bible tells us, be transformed by the renewing of our mind. We need to change our mindset. And that's not taught early on, like we're doing with the boys now. And we have our sister come in and teach financial literacy. We catch them early. We also catch our girls early. You don't teach them to go on and say, well, look, if the man ain't going to get you at 8 years old, he ain't going to buy you some red bottom shoes, which they going to become black bottom once you walk on them a little bit. Then the bottom line is she got a whole different mindset. And now her whole emotional connection to a man as she get older is based on materialism.
Yep.
Well, if you put all your faith and your treasures and your wants and desires, you're going to end up with some kind of suffering, which also compromise your ability to communicate with the person that you had a child with. As you said, Crystal, you and your former developed the co-parenting skill without any assistance. That's because you had a different mindset. You decided somewhere along the line that you were going to be a mature woman, a woman of Proverbs 31, and you were going to do what was necessary to interact, even though you and your former's role changed, your responsibility didn't change. So you still had to engage in that piece. So all this is if you will, a gumbo of many things. But in order to make a good recipe to pass it on, you got to break it down. And that's what we're trying to do now. Break it down so people can now take the simplicity. Because Einstein said, if you can't simplify whatever you know to the point where a child can get it, you don't understand it yourself. So we got to be able to break these things down so people can really grasp, especially our women grasp, what is truly important. Is it your wants and desires? Or is it making sure that you cover your foundational needs? And when it's appropriate, then you seek out your wants and desires.
Yeah. So, well, great point. So, what I want to do, Crystal, is with these last minutes, let's talk solutions.
Okay.
What are your solutions?
Single Black Mothers Network, which is what I'm launching in May. And the purpose of that is it's a judgment-free network, a space for single Black mothers, which is providing credit, banking, and personal financial coaching, entrepreneurial opportunities, personal empowerment, and healing in order to move from surviving to striving, right? And improve the financial relationship for the family and for generations to come. Part of the thing is, and Heather mentioned the 30-second sound bites and the 60-second sound bites that you see on. There's a lot of good information out there, right? But if I don't know how to put that information to use, it's still just information. If I don't know, if I'm not plugged into something, so be it, if you're trying to get healthy, you're plugged into whatever this system is to get you healthy, you have to be plugged into a system, and there has to be this judge-free zone where no one is judging you. I've been through the financial storm after the divorce, so my goal is to come back and hold your hand and pull you out of that storm. Everybody has a financial relationship, and most people's financial relationship has been defined by others. And so as we work through what this network, as we go through these monthly sessions, it's about, one, peeling back those layers to understand why you operate the way that you operate, because most people don't even understand that, right? And then get you a strategy to get you from A to Z while holding your hand and giving you the encouragement. It's not easy, but it can be done. And you have to stay plugged in order to do it. What you have and what you're dealing with has been ingrained on you for however many years you've been on Earth, right?
All right.
You're not gonna unlearn it and relearn it. overnight. It takes a process, and you have to stick with the process and be able to walk through the steps, the guided steps, in order to get you there. Because it's not an overnight fix.
Commitment is very hard for people.
It is very hard.
How can I be
63
committed to something?
consecutive days.
Say it again, Heather.
63 consecutive days for a habit to become a lifestyle.
And one
So
of the things,
that's at
Absolutely.
least that's over 2 months.
Yeah.
right. And one of the things that Heather, you said something, the key word we have to embrace the process. See, many people are too attached to the results. The results come. It's like wet with water. You can't separate the two. If you're going through the process, the results will manifest at some point.
Yes.
But if you don't want to embrace the process because you want it quick, fast, in a hurry, and you're waiting on the end results, then you miss out. So that's so important, that process.
And breaking it down into small bite-sized pieces so that it doesn't terrify you, that you're not scared, and then it's cutting, the alarm is sounding and it's cutting off access to your cortex. So we're going to break those things down into small bite-sized chunks so that you get it, and the more that you start to get, the more excited, because now you're seeing the results, and again, you're going back and you're committing to that process, and then you're literally changing that lifestyle.
Until you get that phone call. We got to be able to, we got to make sure, one of the things to add to that, the one thing that we're talking about even right now, we have to make sure that you understand this is life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something, right? This is going to change your life.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not committed to really wanting, right, a difference in your life, right, that's a whole nother dynamic, because, okay, now I got to look at, you got to count on another person. Somebody's got to help you. The conditioning part, as you said, changing that whole philosophy is awesome. What's the other solution you have besides just that, or that's just your...
Well, and part of that, what truly falls up under that healing piece, though, is being able to where I don't coach from a personal relationship perspective, but part of this healing is being able to heal and build a co-parenting financial relationship, because that's going to be really, really important.
Yes.
And so, like I said, I don't work to bring the family back together, but we have to be able to work together financially and changing and improving the mindset so that now you and the father of your children are working together to make sure that, and if it starts off financially, then you let it grow from there, but coming back to make sure those children are.
And whatever you do, stay out of the bed.
Please, because
that's
right.
As soon as I tell men this all the time. It's such a hard thing, because you are doing part of your job. She's vulnerable. You gotta say no, and she gotta say no.
No, yeah.
Because you're going to call, you're going to be vulnerable, you're going to be called, you can get hot, you can get on the phone. He said, why don't you come through, right? And you find yourself in this position.
Loneliness
and everything. And now you done drew back into a spiritual web,
Yep.
right, that you barely got out of. Mm-hmm. That's where me having to teach the spiritual terror that's what's coming. Mm-hmm. Because when you just getting out of this realm of brokenness, and you're getting to a place where you can think, you can conceive, you can process, you can be committed to something else. We have, and I understand the economic part, but I believe in some areas we have placed too much of a value on money. The knowledge of money helping you, yes, but the value that I got to do whatever it takes for this money,
survival.
That mindset.
I'm just doing what I got to do to survive.
Yeah, that's.
We got to move past.
You got to move past. They just put a lot of people in jail. Put a lot of men in jail.
A lot of people in jail. A lot of women in predicaments that they should not be in and don't want to be in. You got women right now staying in relationships right now today that they don't want to be in because the financial attachment. I'm doing what I need to do in order to survive.
Yeah, vice versa.
Right.
For sure.
Vice versa. So this was awesome, right? So we'll start in the room on the camera. We'll go with you first, Heather. Tell everybody where they can connect with you.
Sure. You can always reach out to me via email at heather@yourinspiredjourney.com. You can visit my website. Lots of ways to connect with articles, radio talk shows. If you want the 30 seconds, if you want the 3 minutes, it's all there. If you want workshops, you want training, you want one-on-one coaching, it's all there. Let's grow. Let's continue to grow. We are here
Mm.
for a reason, and we have to ensure the longevity of us being here so that we can accomplish that which we have been set on the course to do. So
Your
it's the journey.
inspired journey.
Uh-oh. Dave, help us.
Yeah, he trying. He trying.
Brother Dave.
Yeah, you can reach me at dron7 at yahoo.com. You can catch me on Facebook at FMAM David Patterson. And you can catch me at my phone number, 608-343-0875. I got to get that into the book. I don't have to title that off anymore.
Okay. The Gun.
Yes, you can
Gunn,
definitely
Gunn.
find me at crystalgun with 2 N's.com. Give me a call, 313-410-8260. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. You can also text me at 313-251-4549.
And what's that website?
Crystal Gunn, CRYSTALG like George, UNN.com.
Y'all gonna make me pull out that Calvin. Man, I keep all this beautiful love and build. Right.
Oh,
Upgraded.
and that went right.
Oh, we gonna put Crystal Gunn that guy.
Right.
It became available.
Right. Awesome. So of course, we're here at METV. I love what we do because we're not just talking about sex, and it's 1,000 podcasts is talking about sex and the wrong type of relationships and threesomes and all. Like, we just limited, right? It's scary to even watch this stuff, right? But I'm proud of what we talk about. I'm proud of what we discuss. We stay in our lane with the restoration of family. Crystal came in here and dropped a bomb today, understanding that the poverty mindset, it's also creating more poverty, and it's being passed along to the children. And I was looking at my kids, and I'm challenging you. Don't just watch me economically, right? So man, that's not something he want to go out there. Well, go, go for it, because economics and getting yourself to a place economically is just so important. I think sometimes we get caught up in doing and loving and what God has for us and all of that, and we forget the one piece to this puzzle is knowing the economics for what you have. You have to get the economics of what you're doing, and you have to be able to put it in a place. It shouldn't be last, it should be first. And understanding that what you're bringing to the table and the economics that's supposed to come with it. That's just my little 2 cents. But I got to add to you that sometimes we don't value family, right? We talk so negative about family. We talk regardless of family. We say negative things. We're having conversations about if he cheated on me the first time, or are we having conversations if she cheated, and men saying they don't want to know and women saying they don't want to know. We're having all these conversations except for the right one. How we stay together. Why are we not having that conversation?
We're not having that one, and we're not having the economic conversation.
And we're not having the economic conversation.
Merrill Lynch did a study, and this was with women across all nationalities, but it said something like 62% of those women said they would rather talk about their own death than finances.
Wow.
Across all nationalities. They would rather talk about their own death instead of finances.
Woo!
Nobody want to talk about finances. That's why people be tearing the club up, man.
Yeah, because they don't want to be accountable. That accountability is okay. You can only spend $20 when you go out tonight.
They go into these relationships. One, they still have single-minded, a single-minded mind state, and then on top of that, you got a lot of people that are financially illiterate. So you go into this relationship and you don't already know what you're doing, so then it just get worse. Because now you got to try to help somebody else or help manage somebody else, or they got to help try to manage your stuff.
And here's the other part of that is you grew up in two different households. So you have two different total concepts about what money and how it should be run.
Come on.
So I have a solution for that. Like So there's two books on my website. One is Financially Flawless, the Single Mothers Edition, and then there's Financially Flawless, the Couples Edition. And they have questions in there that you need to be able to discuss about finances.
Come on.
And it's marriage season. I also do premarital and marital financial counseling.
Come on.
Because having those financial conversations are not always easy. I was on
Dang, I should have knew that.
on a show with Hetheru, and after we were done, one of the ladies in the that worked in the office said she was in a relationship with somebody currently and said, "Well, can I ask him about his credit?" Can you ask him? Yeah, you most definitely
That's on
better
that.
be asking you.
You should know that before you get them draws up. You gotta know some things before you lay down.
You need to know that before you pay for the first dinner.
Right. So you need to. So you gotta have.
Man.
But
that's the first date question.
the reason why I did those books, so they have over 60 questions that you need to, go through. But the reason is because, one, we don't know what we don't know, and two, we don't know what we need to be talking about. So it's a guide to help spark the conversation to get you where you need to be.
Man, because again, like you said, finances is the number one reason for divorce.
Mm-hmm.
It is not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not creeping.
Yeah.
It's not cheating. It's finance.
Yeah.
And so that's but right on point, right?
I think that.
Justin,
No,
what'd you say?
I think I her book say that's the first thing you should ask. I think the first thing you need to ask is how you as an individual need to ask yourself about how to deal with finances. And you need to go in and seek that investment, like getting with Crystal and Heather about information before you even sit down. Because if you ask the question wrong, people go straight into defense mode. You want to be able to communicate with people in a way, and some of these things we put out, we have to be careful. I'm saying we shouldn't walk on eggshell, but as we're putting this out into the air, we have to be careful because people may not have the whereabouts to know how to effectively communicate. Mm-hmm. So we tell them, you go out here and the first thing you want to do, can I ask you about your credit? Well, off the top, somebody going to get defensive because you may not. You got to really sit down and talk to the individual. And if you don't know how to put the questions together, then you can stimulate an unnecessary argument.
Oh,
Well,
and
you
I
ain't
don't
in a
think
relationship anyway.
I don't think that's the first question that you should. That's not the first question that you should ask. And the Couples Edition books takes you through a series of, and it takes you systematically through if you're in the beginning of getting serious with somebody, all the way up through marriage, and now the planning thing. It's marriage season too, you guys. So you want to make sure if you're buying wedding presents that you buy that book, add that book to it, because and then there's some instructions on how to have that conversation throughout it, because it can get real heated because we live in a society too that says I'm right and you're wrong, and because I grew up this way in my household, I think that it's right.
Right.
And it's not necessarily what's best.
Right at all.
Right.
And
anytime,
go ahead.
Anytime you project something on somebody else, that's always going to end up being a bad thing.
Well, yeah. Because you're coming in.
People automatically get defensive as soon as you project on.
Yeah, because you probably just get out of a relationship. We jumping from relationship to relationship.
Yeah. But
no healing.
With no healing.
No healing.
Like you say, Brother Dave?
But as Crystal is saying, see, I'm sure you heard that old saying, they didn't read the manuscript or they didn't get the book. See, Crystal's presenting the book, but many people don't have the book. So my point is that, and as you were just saying, I wish they purchased the Emmy. I wish they do that. People don't do that. That's why the Bible at the end of it say, he that have ears to hear. There are people that just ain't listening. So this education piece that we're presenting is so significant because it gives people a foundation to build upon. You know, we just have to be careful because, again, I like you guys, I sit down with a lot of people and those battles come up about the finances, but the approaches and the mindset from two households, two way of seeing the world, two different lenses can be detrimental to people if they're trying to build a relationship. So my point, and I'm going to be quiet, is that we just have to be careful what we put out there.
You do.
Yeah,
You
at the same
absolutely do.
time, right? To at the same time, and to say that we are not going to get in a relationship unless there's a certain amount of maturity. That's the problem. You going in with kid-like mindset that if you can't have a conversation, you over 40 and can't have a conversation about money, yeah, that's a problem. That's it.
There's some folks can't have conversations.
They can't have
about
anything.
when it comes to ownership, and when I say ownership, I mean my ownership of me, my actions, my way, and all of that. But you have to look at what people are being fed on the,
Right.
all of these shows and all
So
of
that
this
go back
stuff.
to that go back to the book, Heather's book about the survey. Let's ask questions
Right.
that is so important
Right.
to us, and then once we get to the financial conversation, let's pull in Crystal's book so we can get some understanding on the finance as well. But to be able to come to an agenda in a relationship, just a conversation, it takes a certain amount of maturity. So many people come to the table with two relationships ago conversation, right? So I'm come to the table
Further than that.
right? But
I was like, you was being modest. I said too.
Yeah, this game worked back then, so I'm gonna bring it to this one. And so now I'm in this conversation with a person that I'm just really trying to gain influence over, because this time I want to be the one because I didn't heal. And so what you draw is what you are.
And it's so interesting.
It's always going to depend on where you are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Maturity wise, you know what I'm saying? So
You gotta read
when I started
books.
dating, we talked about everything the first date because for us, it was important to know these things. Like, if we can't talk about this first date and know where you at,
Right.
so I can decide
It's
whether or
your
not I want to
mindset
keep
check.
whether I want to keep dating you or we just gonna be cool or whatever.
Right.
Like, I feel like it should be part of the first date conversation. You getting to know somebody, you need to know what kind of habits they already have. Don't wait until date 9, 10. Don't wait until 5, 6 months down the road.
If you
Don't
on the
wait
phone
until
for
you
an hour.
like, hey baby, I love you so much. Will you be my wife? And now you want to start asking questions
Right.
about stuff that you
It's
should have
late.
asked. No, that's too late.
Yeah.
You should be asking in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is part of the whole dating process. If you don't know in the beginning what's up,
Right.
you setting yourself up for.
And therefore, you setting yourself up for poverty. Take it away, Crystal. Because essentially, when we split, Brother Dave, I'm setting myself up for poverty.
Yeah, and a whole lot. And one word that I think everyone here has thrown out is healing, right?
Yes.
Personal healing, financial healing, mental healing. We have to go through that healing process because what's happening in the world is just, it's driving us in the mental illness and things that are happening as a result of it. We have to start healing in all of these different areas, individually and collectively.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to this moment. Remember, everything that we talk about is going to eventually impact your family.
Absolutely.
So remember this, right? Beautiful is the only way to say family. Put that work in, people, because it's so important to make it. Those who are married, they live longer. Those who have combined income, they have more. Regardless of how we look at it, together is better than sitting on the sideline watching everybody hoop. My name is Calvin Mann. God bless you and encourage me. I'm young and I'm hooping. Ain't that right, Heather?